his cool like this. And to his defense, this entire series has been a dogfight, but today's game in particular has been so very physical. This is definitely a frustration play. He got the rebound. Jaden McDaniels is grabbing his arm on one side, Naz Reid on the other, and he throws a wild elbow. And you can even see from Dylan Harper's reaction, he goes straight across his neck.
That's not just frustration. That's a player completely losing control in a way we've never seen from him before. Wendy just threw an elbow directly across Naz Reid's neck, and Dylan Harper's reaction says everything. This wasn't a basketball play. This was pure emotion boiling over in the third quarter of what's become the most physical playoff series of the season.
When they go to the table to announce that it is a flagrant 2, and Wemby's talking to Harrison Barnes, and he's like, "What does that mean?" Harrison Barnes is like, "Yeah, that means that you're out of here, buddy. You can't do that. You can't elbow people across the neck." Wemby took it on the chin. He was clapping.
Watch Harrison Barnes having to explain what a flagrant 2 actually means. Wendy genuinely didn't know he was being ejected. And that moment right there, where reality hits him and he starts clapping on his way off the floor, that's not acceptance. That's a player who knows the refs just made this series even more complicated. Because here's what happened in the 60 seconds before that elbow.
Game in particular has been so very physical. This is definitely a frustration play. He got the rebound. Jaden McDaniels is grabbing his arm on one side, Naz Reid on the other, and he throws a wild.
Jaden McDaniels grabbing one arm, Naz Reid on the other. Two defenders physically restraining him on a rebound, and the whistle never came. This entire series has been called like a street fight, and the officials have let both teams get away with contact that would draw fouls in the regular season. So when does a player finally snap? Apparently in the third quarter of Game 4, when the physicality crosses from playoff intensity into something else entirely.
On his way off the floor. The refs truly do need to get this game under control, because just a few plays later, De'Aaron Fox got his knee taken out. He hobbled his way off the court,
and the consequences came immediately. Just a few plays after Wendy's ejection, De'Aaron Fox got his knee taken out. He hobbled off the court, visibly in pain, and suddenly the Spurs are playing without two key rotation players in a game they're somehow still winning. That's not coincidence. That's what happens when officials lose control of a game's physicality. Players start protecting themselves, and the retaliation escalates.
There's that.
It's still only the third quarter of this game, but I don't think I've ever seen Wemby lose his cool like this. And to his defense, this entire series has been a dogfight, but today's...
The broadcast crew said they'd never seen Wendy lose his cool like this, and they're right to be surprised. This is a player known for composure under pressure, someone who typically channels frustration into better defense or smarter offensive decisions. But this series has been different from the opening tip. Every possession is contested. Every rebound is a battle. Every screen is set with force that tests the limits of what's legal. The question isn't whether the flagrant 2 was the correct call. It absolutely was. You cannot throw elbows at head level regardless of how much contact you've absorbed on the other end. The question is how the game reached a point where a player with Wendy's reputation felt that was his only option.
The funniest part about this whole thing is the refs are reviewing the call, and then they go to the table to announce that it is a flagrant 2, and Wemby's talking to Harrison Barnes.
Look at that replay again. The elbow goes directly across the neck area, exactly where the officials are trained to watch for dangerous contact. This isn't a basketball move gone wrong. This is a frustration play from a player who feels like he's been getting mauled without protection for 3.5 quarters, and when Harrison Barnes has to explain the consequences, you can see the weight of what just happened settling in. But here's what makes this situation more complex than just one player's ejection. The Spurs are still winning this game despite losing Wendy and then Fox to injury. That tells you something about how poorly the other team is handling the pressure, but it also reveals how deep this roster actually is. They're absorbing playoff physicality, losing key players, and still executing their game plan.
And he's like, "What does that mean?" Harrison Barnes is like, "Yeah, that means that you're out of here, buddy. You can't do that. You can't elbow people across the neck." Wemby took it on the chin. He was clapping.
That clapping on the way off the floor is going to be analyzed for days. Is it sarcastic? Is it acknowledgement that he deserved the ejection? Is it frustration with the refs for letting the game get that physical in the first place? Probably all three. Because when you watch the full sequence from the rebound to the elbow to the review to the ejection, you're watching a player who feels like the officials failed him first. The refs reviewed the call at the table, determined it was a flagrant 2, and ejected Wendy with still 1/4 to play, in a playoff game. In a series that's been a dogfight from the opening possession. That's not a decision officials make lightly, which means the contact was severe enough to warrant the most serious penalty available outside of a suspension.
because just a few plays later, De'Aaron Fox got his knee taken out. He hobbled his way off the court, but surprisingly enough, the Spurs are still winning this game.
And then Fox goes down. His knee gets taken out just plays later, and suddenly the narrative shifts from one player's frustration to a broader question about player safety. When officiating allows games to become this physical, injuries become inevitable, not because players are trying to hurt each other, but because the margin for error disappears when everyone's playing with that level of intensity and contact. The Spurs being able to maintain their lead through all of this chaos speaks to their depth and preparation, but it also raises questions about sustainability. Can they continue winning if the series stays this physical? Can they afford to lose rotation players to ejections and injuries when the games are this close? What we're watching isn't just playoff basketball. This is what happens when two evenly matched teams refuse to back down, when officials let them play through contact that would normally draw whistles, and when the intensity builds until something breaks. In this case, what broke was Wendy's composure, Fox's knee, and any pretense that this series would be decided by clean basketball. The broader context here matters. Playoff officiating always allows more physical play than the regular season. That's expected. Players adjust. Coaches adjust their defensive schemes to take advantage of what refs are allowing. But there's a line between playoff intensity and dangerous basketball, and this game crossed it. The elbow to the neck crossed it, the play that injured Fox crossed it, and now both teams have to figure out how to compete in Game 5, knowing that the physical stakes just got significantly higher. So here's what we're left with. A series that's already been brutal just became more dangerous. A player known for composure just got ejected for one of the most blatant, flagrant fouls of the playoffs. Another key player is injured, possibly seriously, in the aftermath. And somehow, through all of that chaos, the Spurs are still winning. The officials need to establish control in Game 5, or this series is going to produce more injuries before it produces a winner. Players on both sides are already playing at maximum intensity. If the whistle stays silent on obvious fouls, if the physicality continues escalating without consequences, someone else is going to get hurt. And at that point, the question stops being about who wins the series and starts being about whether the basketball is even worth the cost. What do you think? Did the refs lose control of this game, or is this just playoff basketball at its most intense? And more importantly, can Wendy come back from this ejection and play with the same edge without crossing the line again? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit subscribe if you want more playoff analysis, and let's see if Game 5 somehow manages to top this chaos.